The year is 2100. Our hero embarks on the first manned mission to Mars. With his brave crew of 5 and new experimental space cruiser, the journey will only take about 2 months. 55 days into the journey, communications with Earth are cut off due to an unprecedented solar storm raging throughout the system. The storm hits the cruiser like a tidal wave taking over a cruise ship. Within minutes, the rest of the crew is blown to pieces or flung from the open hull as it's ripped apart. Barely surviving the catastrophe, our hero dons his space exploration suit, finds the housing, agricultural, and utility pods, and prepares them for landing. Days go by and the dark red sight of Mars peers into view from the cockpit. Our hero quickly activates all the living pods and sends them down to the rocky ground. Following shortly after in his own landing pod, he lands safely behind a mountain range. Pulling up his logistics and mapping of the known ground, he finds the housing pod located a few kilometers west of his position. He also pings the agricultural and utilities pod on the map, but he doesn't know how long he will last without the housing pod operational. Without hesitation, he begins eagerly marching in the direction of the pod. Something feels off as he begins to notice paths on the ground made by water and mirages in the sky that appear to be small clouds. Approaching the pod, to his surprise, he spots a cloaked figure walking towards him from the mountain range. Our hero races to the pod as quickly as he can, trying to activate the display screen on the front. On attempting to activate it, the ground starts to rumble as a large bug-like creature explodes from the ground, launching itself at our hero. With a mixture of our hero's earth weaponry and the unknown cloaked figure's somatic verbal blasts and levitational humming, they quickly eradicate the creature. Our hero approaches the cloaked figure, extending his arms in a sign of peace. The cloaked figure speaks to him in an ancient version of the old Indian Sanskrit language. Translators in his suit help him understand some of the words to communicate with the stranger. An understanding of housing in the mountains and tunnels throughout the ground becomes clear, and the stranger turns back to where he came from. Our hero turns his attention towards the housing pods and begins its construction program. He resupplies his suit with oxygen from the pod and begins heading for the agricultural pod to get food on this barren world. With the agricultural pod in sight, the ground begins to rumble as it did before. Another horrific bug creature bursts from the ground, surprising our hero in mid-stride. After minutes of defending himself from the large bug, our hero falls prey to the monster's sharp pincers and deadly mandibles, losing a foot in the battle and falling unconscious. Our hero wakes up slowly and painfully as he's being dragged through a tight hole in the ground by his remaining foot. He struggles violently to activate his suit's mining gear and breaks free into a large cavern beside him. 4 of the robed humanoids who met him earlier are peacefully walking towards him in the darkness. They all stop abruptly as a 20-foot-long bug-like monstrosity emerges within the caves behind our hero. Our hero quickly fires off a few rounds from his arm-mounted guns, but is nearly killed as he's smushed up against the cavern walls by the enormous creature. The cloaked humanoids begin their somatic warfare. Dancing and flowing between each other, they hum with perfect pitch as the monster is lifted in the air and frozen. The beasts break free and lands on one of the monks, launching another down the tunnel. The monks converge and shout at the creature as it finally falls lifelessly to the ground. Our hero is barely conscious as he becomes weightless and is carried through the tunnel to a glowing crystal chamber. There he is healed and explained the situation he is in. Sadly, the journey took a heavy toll on our hero's psyche, and on returning to Earth, he is taken into custody and treated as a lunatic.